Well, welcome to Talking Points. I'm Esme Murphy, and my guest here needs no introduction, Mike Lindell, who now has to be considered the front runner in the GOP race for Minnesota governor.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in, and congratulations on these polls that have been doing so
Yeah,
well.
they've been another one's coming out, I guess, tomorrow. And they said I'm in first. I called them, so
okay.
every one I've been in first so far.
Okay.
So that's
well,
good.
There's a poll that came out from another TV station in town that had you way up 27 to 22%. But what I thought was really interesting is that if you go and look at the previous polling by internal Republican pollsters, you're also ahead by just about that amount.
Right.
How does that feel?
It feels great. It means that everything we're doing is working, and people want change. They want to see. I think they're looking for a problem solution, businessman mentality here, and I've proven it over the years with MyPillow, and we can win. And I think I've been doing a lot of campaigning since December, and it's paying off, I believe, letting people know that we have hope. We need to have some hope.
Okay. I want to ask you, President Trump said a few months ago, Mike Lindell deserves to be president. I don't think President Trump would say that. President Trump said Mike Lindell deserves to be governor of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. You said that's not an endorsement and that you're working to get his full endorsement.
Right.
Can you explain that? Because a lot of people will see that as an endorsement.
Yeah, what I did back then, I mean, we're good friends. And what he was saying there was the stuff I've done for our election platforms and built a team of 300,000 people called the Cause of America in all 50 states, and what I've done the last 5 years to help the country secure our elections. But when I did, he was the first one I called after my wife. We decided to run, and I called him up and said I was going to run for Minnesota governor. And
did you just call him up on the cell phone? Or?
Yeah.
Oh. just wondering how you called the president. I've never called the president.
And anyway, I didn't ask him for his endorsement. I said, I'm going to run, and I said I wanted him to endorse me when he does based on merit, based on what I can do to show him that I'm not only am I a great campaigner and marketer, but I also have the solutions to the problems we face here in Minnesota. I also wanted the people of Minnesota to know that I'm all in, and we didn't want him to say, oh, it's because the president endorsed me. So it was kind of twofold there. I want people to know I'm 100% all in.
Are you hoping to get the president's endorsement in the next few weeks?
Absolutely. I was just on another station, ABC, and they were hitting me going, and do you really want the president's endorsement? I'm going, absolutely. He's the best president I've ever seen in my life. And he's a businessman, problem solution, and I'm hoping to get that before the people start in-person voting, which I think is sometime in July.
Well, actually, people are voting right now.
No, that's early voting. That's not in person.
In person, but you can go to these centers and vote. Yeah. Actually, I think people should know you were one of the earliest supporters of Donald Trump here. There was a 2016 rally 2 days before the election, and I had gotten off of work. It was a Sunday, and I thought, I'm just going to go see what the deal is with this, Donald Trump candidate. And I remember being amazed that people were leaving their cars on the side of the road.
I spoke that to you.
I know, and you spoke that to you. People were leaving their cars on the road on Highway 77 and jumping over fences to see this guy. And it was packed, and I was like, something's going on. And this was 2 days before the election.
Yeah. And, I had never voted in my life. I didn't think politics mattered, and I had met then Donald Trump, a candidate, in August 15th of 2016. He invited me out to meet him at Trump Tower and just to talk about, Mike, what's it like making your products here in the U.S.? And there was really no agenda other than he wanted my opinion of how things are to bring manufacturing back. And I told him I was an ex-addict, ex-crack cocaine addict, and I was going to have the Lindell Recovery Network and help millions of addicts get to God, get to Jesus. And he said, I'm going to stop the drugs pouring in. But we had this amazing conversation. And then I was actually out of town, and I got an email to speak at that rally you're talking about.
Well, I just kind of
I was so nervous. I was so scared I didn't talk in front of crowds before.
It was the first time that I'd ever seen him speak as a candidate.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed because he had not gotten much publicity in Minnesota.
Right.
And that was the year he almost won Minnesota. but the enthusiasm was off the charts. And
yeah, it really was.
He ended up winning the election.
In fact, my first interview after he won, I came back from New York, was your show.
Oh, that's great, on Sunday. Well, thank you. I remember that.
Yes.
I want to ask you about how MyPillow is doing, because in 2025, you appeared before a judge in Washington, D.C. and said, I'm in ruins, I can't afford to pay $56,000 ruling to Smartmatic. How is MyPillow right now? That's not that long.
MyPillow is the strongest it's ever been in 5 years. It's smaller because obviously the box stores got canceled. It was the most attacked company ever with our Operation Arctic Frost, our own government that attacked it in 2022. Then we had the lawfare with these machine companies, these voting machine companies. So my employee-owned company with Dominion just finally dropping their lawsuit. And it means a lot to them, so I don't have
Dominion just dropped $1.3
billion with a B.
billion dollar lawsuit against you. It's been settled out of court. There's a confidential settlement, but that is no more. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
You still have the Smartmatic.
Yeah, the Smartmatic is like a parked car here in Minneapolis, and it's sitting with the judge, and he. The problem with that one is he made a ruling, and then a week later, Smartmatic, it came out in the news that they were guilty of other crimes.
Well, I want to hold you off on there because I can't. I'm not up on Smartmatic.
Well, I'm just telling you where that's sitting.
Yeah.
So that's sitting parked. We're probably going to reach out to them and say, hey, you guys want to drop your suits now that we Dominion did. And here's the reason. I want to say this. Last summer they overturned the $5 million challenge here in Minneapolis, the 8th Circuit, which we found out on the last show I talked.
Right. That was the one
with the evidence.
With the evidence of the voting, if somebody could disprove.
The voting, yeah. So that got overturned and in my favor. And then now, just recently what happened is everyone says, well, why are they dropping these now? And we just put out, it's a 5-year report, 800 pages on Lindell TV. It's posted there for the whole world to see. It's a historical library of everything that happened in the last 5 years. And this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. This is our election platform.
The Lindell TV's Election Bureau crime report?
No. This is LindellTV.com. It's my news outlet.
On LindellTV.com,
it's
there's
the second square. Yeah, the second square. It says it's a historical library we posted there, and this was just 2 days ago. We've turned that in before to the DOJ back. Was part of it back in February, and then part of it now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to say, we don't care about the 2020 election anymore.
Here's what you need to know. People, this is what I said the other day on ABC. I have been fighting not to overturn the 2020 election. I have been fighting to secure our elections in this country for 5 years. I've spent tens of millions of dollars. 132 countries have banned electronic voting machines and went to paper ballots hand counted. That's what I've been fighting for. I'm not going to stop fighting for that. Everybody wants secure elections. I've worked with Democrats and Republicans. I've had on both sides, and the people want secure elections. I don't care what these politicians, these uniparty, and we're fighting to get secure elections where people trust our elections.
All right. So you must be for the President's SAVE Act.
Oh, absolutely. That's so important. 79% of Democrats, I'm talking people now, and I think it's 89% of Republicans, pretty high, want the SAVE Act, the Save America Act. We all want people here that vote, that live in our country, that are citizens. And, you get things nonsensical like New York where it takes 2 forms of ID to shovel snow. And here you should have
true.
You should have an ID here. You should be a citizen to vote.
So you think you need an ID for voting because that was voted down here in a constitutional
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, you have an ID if you go into Target and buy a cough syrup, whatever, medicine sometimes. I mean,
Minnesota voted against that in 2012 was a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, and that's sad. We should have this. Should be our most sacred thing to have secure voting where everybody trusts it.
Now, do you think Minnesota, here, this is a sample ballot. I happen to get doing a story. Here it is, and it's a paper ballot. So in Minnesota, you cast your vote on a paper ballot, then you submit it into a machine, and there's a BDO machine.
Most of the voting here in Minnesota, you go to the machine, and the paper comes out. Okay, most places you're not putting paper in, but either way, there's no verification with the tabulators there in Minnesota. We have big problems in every state that uses tabulators. Now, there is a way. My teams have a way. I've met with the Netherlands, the UK, France, Germany. I met with all of them in Taiwan. My teams have put together the best hand counting systems the world's ever seen, and the best ones in California that we used in the 2024 election.
Yeah. Well, I know they have paper ballots here because I've seen them stacked up in election headquarters around the state.
Paper ballots, hand counted. There's a difference between
but your issue is the hand counting.
Get rid of the machines. You can't. Those voting machines need to go. They need to be melted down. What do I say? And turned into prison bars. I mean,
okay. All right. Are you too fixated? I mean, you seem obsessed by this notion of that somehow there's fraud in our elections when in fact the evidence shows there's very little.
Well, that's why you need to go to LindellTV.com. We dropped 800 pages, and this is irrefutable. Yeah. This is. I went around. Now you got to.
I did go to LindellTV.com.
Well, you got to realize. You got to realize. I went around the country. I bought everybody's voter rolls. I paid millions of dollars in Alabama alone, $40-some thousand. Got the voter rolls for the 2020 election, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And we take all these in. We under the Freedom of Information Act, we have the right to get. It's called cast vote records, and they'll show either computer manipulation or not. And it's a big problem everywhere in our country.
At least in the judicial rulings, all of our elections have been upheld. I mean, if you're elected governor...
There's never been any of them that went to court based on merit. Only one ruling almost went to court, and it was Judge Totenberg down in Georgia. It was a 7-year case, and they flipped the election right in front of her with a ballpoint pen, and then she threw it out on standing.
Okay, well,
nothing's ever
but
made
all
on merit.
The rulings on the 2020 election upheld those results, all of them. We're just wondering, when you're elected, if you're elected governor, because you very well could be, you are the leading Republican candidate, are you going to be working on this voting machine issue?
I've had a team that's already in place. There's 300,000 people in the Cause of America. I have the Election Crime Bureau. The president has all this stuff. He's working on down. They're out there. They've been working as I've been keeping MyPillow going for the last 2 years. My teams are already in place. They're already working on that, and that's going to come to fruition. That's a process. We have a lot of places where we have secure elections in the United States now. My focus is going to be on a lot of other things in Minnesota. Will Minnesota be a part of the? Do I want to make Minnesota the most secure elections like everyone else? Absolutely.
All right. Let me ask you. I understand that you have a new immigration policy that you wanted to talk about. Yeah. Tell me about that, because I think everybody agrees our current system is broken.
Yeah, it is broken. And here's what when I went out to California, so I want to give you a little backstory on this. In 2000, I think it was 15, I went out to California. I was buying up their Supima crop for MyPillow. And I went out there, and this guy was telling me, and a big plantation, he says he couldn't compete with next door, as these guys were over there paying cash to illegal immigrants. But he also told me stories about them, that they were using them like slave labor, underpaying them, and these illegals, immigrants that were here, were having crimes committed against them. And they couldn't tell anybody, and that's what we have. And so that was 8 years ago, or about 9 years ago. And what I see happening here and all across our country, but especially here, you have illegals that are here, illegal immigrants that are good people. They've never committed a crime, okay, and they're hiding.
And many of those people have been deported.
Right. And I've hidden. Well, this is the things we need to talk about here, and I'll tell you my plan. And you look at that, and they could be your neighbor, they could be a worker,
Absolutely.
And there could be crimes. I've talked to them. I went down many. I've talked to them, and they're crimes that get committed against them by other illegals or even our own people, because they can't tell anybody. You follow that part?
Yes, absolutely. Okay? And the police are worried about that because they want people to come forward.
Right. And here's what my plan will do. So then you also have them getting underpaid cash by employers that are here. The employers don't care about them. They want to make the money, and they, because they can't tell on them either. Here's what I propose is I want to make conditional non-resident visas. And this would be, I'm going to actually talk to the president about this, but I want to start with Minnesota. These conditional non-resident visas, you would have 6 months. Anyone's here that is an illegal immigrant, He comes in, you get checked in the courthouse, you get fingerprinted, you get checked in to get this conditional non-resident visa. Now you have 6 months to do that. You're not a citizen, but you don't have to leave ever, as long as a couple of things happen. One is you can't commit a crime be convicted of a crime of a gross misdemeanor or better. Right now we have 1,300 people in Minnesota that are in our prisons that are illegal. We pay $110 million a year to house them. They need to be shipped out. Okay.
Yeah, but the president is not going to go for this.
Let me finish the plan, Esme. So you have this. And now, at the end of the 6 months, if these people, if they want to go get a driver's license, they can go get a driver's license. But just like when I used to get DWIs, there was conditions on my driver's license. They will have to get a driver's license, but they will have to learn to speak English and to read our signs here. Okay, that's going to be one of the conditions. Okay, if you want to drive it. Now, if you go to the line to be a legal citizen, then you go to the back of the line. But here's the thing: that line's going to be short, and there's going to be no cost. How are we going to pay for that? Here's how we're going to pay. During this 6 months, the employers that are paying cash, at the end of that 6 months, if they're paying cash and they don't have that card, these guys are committing crimes, these employers. They need to go to jail for 90 days. It'll be mandatory. And then they're going to start paying taxes that we all pay. And the economy is going to go up here because everyone's going to start paying taxes.
Well, the immigrant community, undocumented, do pay taxes. There's a way that started in the 1990s. Okay. There is a way that they do pay taxes.
They're not all paying this. These employers are paying. It solves a big problem. These guys now, the illegals, can come out of the shadows. They can live like you and I. They don't have to hide out. They don't have to worry about being attacked till they can't tell anybody, or raped, or whatever would happen to them. Yeah. They don't have to have that worry. These employers that are stealing from all of us better look out under my watch, because they better have that conditional non-resident card for you to employ them, and you better be paying your taxes. And then if you do this, here's what happens. You now have all the money that you gain. It's in the billions, not millions. In the billions you gain from them paying taxes. Now, these employers, okay, you take that money and you use it to legalize people. You bring it to, because right now a lot of the people, they can't afford $5,000 to $15,000 to go through the system to be legalized. Right. I went down to Florida and checked it all out and people that are coming in legally.
Well, I know that farmers would be thrilled with something like this because they've lost a lot of people. And the president does seem to be aware that there is a need for these workers and that the system has to be fixed so that we can get these workers in. But his policies, though, ended up deporting and arresting a lot of those neighbors that you've talked to.
Esme, I haven't talked to him yet about this. This is a couple of things that maybe he's not seeing at the level. I've lived this. I came down to Minneapolis. I have friends down here. I'm down here all the time.
You also had a business.
Yes, in a business. So here's what I'm going to tell you what happens then. What happens is now you've actually sorted the illegals we don't want. The ones that have committed, that are in our prisons here, that have committed rape, murder, all the ones that are actually out looking for that the president wants gone. Now, here's what happens. When these guys come out and finally they don't have to hide anymore, they can be, I'm going to have whistleblower policies. They're going to say, hey, this guy here, he did this crime. And if you have committed a crime of a gross misdemeanor above, they're shipped out. You don't get a second chance on that. And when you have these conditions,
but you'd have to be convicted.
You have to be convicted. You can't be charged. You can't. It doesn't work that way. I've been there. Okay. If you have one of these conditional non-resident visas, and you commit a crime, if you're convicted of a crime of a gross misdemeanor or up, I'm sorry, you have to leave our country. Now, nobody's going to be left here other than the bad ones that don't go in and get that. They're not going to get that card. And then everybody's safer. Our communities are safer. You take the ones that are left, and they're going to tell on them and say, these guys have been doing this, and they're there. They're not going to be able to get employed because they're criminals, and these guys better not employ them to steal from us.
Mike, this sounds exactly like some of the Democratic proposals over the years to reform.
I'm sure the Republicans, maybe they won't like me for it, but it solves the problem. These are common sense solutions.
Well, and I think a lot of people on the Democratic side, I think, will agree with you, because a lot of what you're saying, and I think it's the business people and the farmers. I don't think people realize how much business people and farmers have been hurt. You surely, in MyPillow, had to be heard in your factories.
Oh yeah, back in the day, absolutely. I mean, you have. It's not just the farmers, though. It's all over. It's everywhere. The people, these employers that think that you think, oh, they're helping the illegal. No, they're hurting them. They're underpaying them slave labor, and they're hurting them. I did a speech with 1,000 Democrats the other day, about a week and a half ago. They were all on the left, liberals and Democrats, and it was all over Minnesota. It was simulcast. And that was the one thing that they stood up and gave me an applause on, because this is the way, these are solutions for people. I'm as a governor, I want to have solutions for all people. Now, you remember when I quit crack cocaine and everything back in 2009, I spent the next 12 years with helping the homeless and people in addiction here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Detroit, Michigan.
And I want to let people know that because you mentioned DWIs and other things. Right. You were an addict. You've written a book about it, and you came out of that addiction.
In January 16, 2009, never looked back.
never looked back. But that's so you've seen a lot.
Yeah. Well, I've lived the American dream on steroids, and that's what I want to save here in Minnesota. Where can you have someone from the streets of Minneapolis get by the grace of God, get out of addiction, set free, and then build the biggest company probably in the country as far as direct sales, an individually, privately owned company like MyPillow, where we had thousands of employees, and then to be able to set up networks, what I did for the homeless and for like my Lindell Recovery Network, and we spent tens of millions of dollars. I want to help people. That's where it's at. And a lot of these programs, another thing I'm going to do as governor, when you have these, in Minnesota, you have the 24 welfare programs that are big and 400 NGOs, that this is where all they talk about all the fraud, all the other candidates. Well, we're going to put in $9 billion, we're going to hit the fraud. Yes, we'll solve the fraud, but you all got to look into these programs to see how they're working to get a good return on your investment. I did this for 12 years here. And so when you look at these programs, I use private sector money. I was the government. I set up this platform using private sector money. People want to help people, but they want to, I want to know that I'm getting a good bang for my buck, right?
Right.
So, and when I set this up, it saved almost 40%. Can you imagine our programs here in Minnesota subsidizing it with the private sector and getting rid of the fraud? And we'd have $30-40 billion left over, so we could.
Everybody wants to get rid of the fraud.
Get our lower taxes. Get lower taxes here. We're some of the highest in the nation. We got to make Minnesota affordable again.
All right. Let me ask you, on the latest campaign finance report for the state, you have come in at $12,000 in your bank account for cash on hand. How are you going to sustain that? Lisa Damon has several hundred thousand. Kendall Qualls actually doesn't have that much at all. He might be in debt. I mean, that's not a lot of money to sustain a 6-week, very heated Republican campaign for the August 11th primary.
Right. Well, I've raised more money than all of them put together. That's a fact. But when you're looking at that report, that's what was left that day.
That was left.
What I do is they asked me this even early on in January. When I hit the ground running, I'm campaigning. I'm not saving it for a rainy day. It's pouring outside. I mean, I'm spending it as I get it. We're campaigning every day. I have teams. I set up teams, 67 Senate districts. I set up teams in every district. I call them ambassadors. And all across the state, just like I did when I built the Cause of America, I'm buying thousands of yard signs. We put out over 2,000. I want to get 20-some thousand out. And I've raised money. I continue to raise money. We have yesterday $100,000. I mean, every day we're raising money. I'm the one person that can raise more than all of them combined because I have a national presence.
Is that why setting up in 67 Senate districts, putting out yard signs, it's a little old-fashioned, but a lot of people say yard signs do matter.
Oh, they do matter, yes. And I'm a marketer. I know marketing. This is one thing is my wheelhouse.
Well, do you think that's why you're doing so well? Because people are surprised when I said, I'm going to interview Mike Lindell. He's the leading candidate in the Republican side for governor. They're like, really?
Yeah.
People are surprised by that.
Well, here's why. If it wouldn't be for you, and I even brought you up, the Minnesota media is horrible. The Star and Tribune, one of the worst papers in the country, you wouldn't even know I'm running for governor. This is where it's at. They're silent. They're pretty silent. Other than ABC had to report me because I'm number one in the polls. The public would wonder, why aren't you talking about Mike Lindell? He's polling number one. So in other words, my marketing campaign,
and that is true.
Yeah, no, it is true. And I have over 9 million people on my social media platforms. Our voice now is bigger than ever. There's over 14 social media platforms, and I have over 9 million people, and then I can reach all the influencers. I have over 200 influencers I know, and then I have over 12 million emails. You got to realize I've been selling my pillows around this state in every nook and cranny since 2004.
So you're using that infrastructure that you've built up to sell pillows to market yourself.
It's not to sell pillows. It's the same concept. I'm going all over Minnesota and meeting the people. I've done over 40 of my own events now. I'm going town to town. I'm the one delivering signs, not a team. I personally am going there to get my volunteers all engaged, and we're getting the local churches engaged, so everybody's involved in that town or that district. And this is what I'm doing every day from morning to night. Tomorrow, or actually later on today, I'm going to be heading up to Moorhead, Minnesota, to East Grand Forks. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm doing that part, and I have a whole route set up. Okay. And I'm not afraid to get out there with the people.
I know that. The August primary is tricky because it doesn't get a lot of voters. It usually hovers between 12 and 22%. Well, the turnout for the August primary in 2024 is just 12%. Back in 2020, it was about 22%. Yeah. And Republicans tend to turn out in smaller numbers, so you don't have a lot of people. You don't have a lot of people voting in this August primary.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of people out to vote, but I really want to get the message out to the Democrats because I spend time in Minneapolis. I want to get my message out. I'm a different candidate. I'm a common sense candidate. I have built the biggest business in Minnesota from the ground up, from inventing the pillow to when we were attacked, to be able to guide them through. Imagine you have a company and you have all these different things that were broken. That's like Minnesota. You need like a CEO to where you can fix all these things and a solution. And when you talk about raising money, I'm going to raise millions. I have events coming up. I've been out of state events. I went down to Texas the other day, and I did this big event there to bring money to Minnesota for our campaign. And I said, you guys, if I don't win, a lot of people I've talked to are going to be leaving Minnesota and their businesses. And I said, we're probably going to come to Texas, and we might not send our best.
Okay, you're saying people are going to leave Minnesota if you don't win.
So many people have said that if we don't have change this time around, if it's the same old establishment candidates, they have said this. I've heard it across the state because they can't. It's affordability is what it is, Esme. You have one of the highest corporate taxes, the highest income taxes, property taxes going up where people can't afford it, car tabs, your tabs on your cars. We've got to make this affordable, and which brings up a lot of other things I'll do. I'm going to eliminate sales tax right away at the ground level.
Whoever's going to win the August primary, it's either you, Kendall Qualls, or House Speaker Lisa Damon. Mm-hmm. But you are ahead there. You could very easily win the August primary, and that automatically sends you to the November election. Mm-hmm. Then in the November election, you've got to face Amy Klobuchar, who is a powerhouse.
Which I know her well.
She's the most successful politician we've seen in generations. She's pulled in double-digit wins in Senate campaigns.
She's pulling over all of us now.
Yeah. How do you get past Amy Klobuchar? Because that's going to be awfully difficult.
Right now we have a big opportunity here that we didn't have before with Amy, and that is the fraud. And I will tell you a story about Amy and Mike Lindell. We agreed. It was a historical agreement in 2018 and 19. Amy and I agreed that the voting machines had to go. We had to get to paper ballots and count it. She was the loudest person in the nation in the movie Kill Chain. This is fact. Her, Kamala Harris, and all the Democrats were in there, and I was in lockstep with them.
So she was concerned about voting machines.
She named them. She said, we got to get rid of them in the movie. Now, what did Amy do? Here will be one of my ads. What did Mike Lindell and Amy do since then? Mike Lindell spent $80 million to secure our elections across this country. What did Amy do? After the 2020 election, she ignored our election fraud, our platforms, and she went to Washington and brought billions of dollars into Minnesota and only to be gone and sent over to Somalia and other places. Okay. That's not a good steward of money, Amy. Okay. And I don't care if she's a senator. You're still responsible for your state for federal funds.
Well, so you're blaming Amy Klobuchar
for
the fraud.
No, I'm saying it was under her watch. Anything under my watch, Esme, just like Lisa Dameth. I'm sorry, she's a Republican Speaker of the House. This all happened under all their watches. If I'm there and I'm getting blocked or I hear something, I'll be the loudest governor you ever seen for the people. We're supposed to be in power for the people. You're elected for the people. And if you can't hide all this stuff with the systems that I will put in, people will go, okay, Amy, I'm sorry. You can say you're because she keeps getting elected. That's why she's successful.
Or she keeps getting elected by double digits. And you know, frankly, according to the polling, people don't buy that she's responsible for any kind of fraud. In fact, they see her as somebody who works in a bipartisan fashion and works across the aisle. I mean, that's what.
And I and a lot of others see her as the next Tim Walz. That's what I see. You know, I don't see any change of the if she's in versus what we already have.
Okay.
We haven't had. And now you're talking parties, and I like to see myself. You say, okay, it's a Republican Party, but it's common sense. We need to have more common sense in our state and solutions to these problems, business solutions. Amy's not a business person. She's just
but she has won the common sense vote time and time again. She's won by double digits. I mean, nobody has a record like hers.
Our state is destroyed, Esme. We pay the highest taxes in almost all 4 categories. Our schools Our schools went from 5, but she doesn't have the solutions. When you see, here's what I'm going to do to combat that. Within 3 to 4 weeks, I'm going to have my budget out there for the whole world to see. And when the governor does his budget, usually you wait till then. I'm not waiting. I've been going to each sector of Minnesota now in looking at these 24 welfare programs. Each one will have the solution that I'm going to have there. Everything will be lined up. Anyone can say, well, like Qualls did the other day, I'm going to give you back $9 billion. Well, how are you going to do that? You're going to rebate. That was his big ad. Amy comes out with this, oh yeah, I'm Amy Klobuchar and I'm visiting little cafes and stuff and it all looks great. I'm tired of politicians out there campaigning.
But people like that. People have supported. She's been doing that for years.
But you got to look at where her state is. She was the senator. It's not like she wasn't here at all. She did bring federal funds into Minnesota for all these programs we have. We pay the highest in the nation. I believe it's $6,000 some odd dollars paid for these programs we're Minnesota nice. But we got to make sure these programs that they're not fraud, we got to make sure that you get a good return on your investment. When I was involved with all these people and they're homeless and people in addiction and people in need, I went in, let's find the root of the problem and help these people and not just pour this money into it and nobody's holding it accountable. I don't think Amy has the business sense to do that. And what I'm going to do is, here's the big advantage. I'm going to get the message out. There is hope. Here's what I plan on doing. And you just get everybody out to vote that believes in the new path forward, because that's what we have to have. Now, Amy, it'll take a lot. You remember Donald Trump on August 15th of 2016, he was down 18 points to Hillary Clinton. So it can be done. And with God, all things are possible, Esme, and this is why I'm running.
All right.
We need change here.
Well, that's true. You're absolutely right. And I mean, Donald Trump is proof that you couldn't come back, but she is an extraordinary formidable
I don't deny
candidate.
that Amy, and
Yeah. We've got a couple of Supreme Court decisions. One of them, the Supreme Court just upheld the ban on transgender athletes. In other words, trans people in women's sports, trans people in boys' sports. What do you think about that? So they upheld a ban on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be banned. You got to protect our women. You got to protect our women. I mean, this is just this stuff. But I have said this over the last 4.5 years when all this nonsense came up, and we were doing this. This actually helped. Open people's eyes. This is another reason here. There's a lot of nonsensical things that went on here in our state too, that people see that and they're alerted now. They're going, hey, we can't let this happen again. We've got to protect our women. I mean, I can't think of more nonsense than men in women's sports. In my brain, if you'd have brought back 20 years and said this was going to happen someday, we'd all say, what are you, in a sci-fi movie?
Okay. Well, let me ask you just overall, is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like people to know? Because I think a lot of people are thinking, you obviously have your very strong supporters. There's no question about that. When you told people at the GOP convention in Duluth, I want all my supporters to go for Kendall Qualls, they did. It was remarkable. I mean, people really follow what you have to say, and that's the reason Kendall Qualls won the endorsement. You've got a big following. Interestingly enough, the studies show with the under 50 crowd, you're really big. You have more support there, more support with men than among women, but you obviously have a really strong level of support. What do you say to people who are thinking, Mike Lindell, he's just too wacky. He sells pillows. He's at the state fair. He's on TV.
No, I get that, and what I'm going to do there is like when the marketing. I did this actually for the president in 2024. I went into the heart of Chicago and deep into Chicago, and I interviewed people that were voting, most were blacks, that were voting for Donald Trump that had never voted Republican before. And I did commercials and said, why are you voting for him if you've never voted Republican? What came out of their mouth was very powerful. So what I'm going to do is educate people, not, like I said, that's why I'm coming out with my budget early. Yeah. So let's say it's women, or let's say it's in the inner city. Here, where that is, I will be doing commercials. Here's why I'm voting for Mike Lindell. So it's people like the people, let's say it's suburban women. You understand?
Yeah.
They need to be, it's like a testimonial. Yeah. So that because I can sit here.
I think those are very effective.
Yeah, they are very effective because I can sit here and tell everyone right now, I'm this and this. I'm a good salesman. Yeah. But I want the other people, the people that have, because I have proof of concept. The other candidates don't have that. Right. I have proof of concept. I've lived and breathed Minnesota, born here all my life. I'm from walking beans in southern Minnesota when I was a kid to an entrepreneur inventing things and having thousands of employees, and to be able to withstand. I don't give up or back down ever too. And I'm governor. I'm never going to stop. I'm for the people. I'm going to be elected for the people. I don't need to do this, but I love Minnesota, and I want to save our American dream. It's gifted me with being able to live that. Going where else in the world can you go from a crack addict in the streets of Minneapolis to being set free and then building a company and then being involved with all these politics for some reason, to secure our elections. But I just know I have the right solutions for the problems. And once people hear that, I'll have no problem getting their vote.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming by. I do want to let people know that I have done interviews with Lisa Damuth and Kendall Qualls in other formats, but we're going to put part of this on TV too. So I just want we're not just favoring Mike Lindell here. We've done interviews with others. In fact, we wanted to get Mike Lindell here because we haven't done a recent interview with him. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Esme.
And it's going to be an interesting race in the primary.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I want to thank you for having me on the Star and Tribune. Where are you? No.
Okay. Well, anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening and watching Talking Points. I'm Esme Murphy from WCCO TV.